Hello, and welcome to the Capstone Legacy Series. My name is Aaron Ladney, and I am standing in front of the Episcopal Church of Atonement. This documentary is about the church's members and its role in the Black community. I hope you guys enjoy.
Good morning.
Good
My
morning.
name is Saquon Boney. What's yours?
I'm Reverend Ricardo Shepherd.
Where are you originally from?
I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, but I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean.
So, how did you become the Reverend?
I'm going to give you the short version. I grew up in church. Both my parents met in seminary. I'm what's called a PK, which is a pastor's kid. I saw what it was to give of yourself for others. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I joined the Marine Corps at the age of 17, had my parents sign for me, went off and saw the world, combat vet, did that, and came back, made some other choices, had a family. But God kept tugging. I recognized that this is what God was calling me to do.
What's your role in this church?
Well, I am the rector, which basically says that I'm the pastor, and my responsibility is for the congregation, for the spiritual growth of the congregation. That's my number one priority.
So, what have you found your journey here this far?
It's been interesting. I arrived here in September of 2019, and in March of 2020, COVID, the pandemic totally took over. And we found ourselves in a place where we had to close the physical doors, because I always make it clear that the church is not the building, the church is the people. The building is where the church gathers.
What's your relationship with the church right now?
Right now, my biggest focus is on regathering, not only bringing folks back into the community, into the church itself, but getting us back out in the community. Because the church is not just it's not a social club. It's just not for us. The purpose of the church is not only to help the sick, the wounded, those who need to grow their faith, but to reach out in the community in which we are and to do something and to be a blessing to others who find themselves in need.
To add on that, what do you think the role is of the church in the Black community?
It changes over time. It has changed. Because if we think about it, in the earlier times, I say in the 60s and 70s, the church was a focal point where the church handled all of the social issues that went on. If somebody needed food, they came to the church. If they needed help with their rent, they came to the church. The church was a place where everything went on. It was a focal point.
When I was 9 years old, I lived around the corner, and we were looking for a church home, and I came to Sunday school here. A lot of us walked to church at that time. Everybody walked to church. And I lived on Central Avenue, so I picked up people on my walk. If I came down Central Avenue, if I came to East Capitol Street, people who I'd gone to school with, we walked together. They would go to their church, I would come here. When I got to Sunday school, it was the same kind of atmosphere, and it was like a family. We knew each other, our parents knew each other.
So there was the grandmamas and the great grandmamas who went to church, and they're the ones who dragged you to church all the time, and they're the ones who always had the good candy too. But they were there.
I was baptized here, confirmed here, married here. Had my daughter was baptized here. My granddaughter was baptized here. My husband became a member here through me. My parents went here. They were funeralized here. This church is my family. I'm on a strategic planning committee. I'm president now of the Daughters of the King. I am now president for a while for the Altar Guild, and anything else that's necessary, I help with.
When the civil rights movement was going on, the church again that was a focal point, right? The church was where we marched. The church was where we gathered and heard speeches. Dr. King, we all know the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King came out of Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta. So it was church-led. And then what happened? Then there was a generation where church no longer became a focal point. Matter of fact, we didn't go to church no more. And then you have a generation where when you talk about church, you're like, what are you talking about? About who? Nah, we don't do church. The federal government became a place where, you can go get Social Security, you can go get food stamps, but we no longer come to church to have conversations about, let's talk. Let's talk about all the killings going on. How is that affecting you? Let's talk about how is it affecting you, the peer pressure and the stuff you're dealing with in school. Let's talk about babies having babies. All right, let's talk about the drugs on the streets and let's have that real conversation. We don't have those no more. But where's a safe place you can have it if you do?
Church.
But it should be.
Should be.
It should be, but it isn't always. And that's what my goal is. My hope is to begin to build a safe space where we can sit down and kick it. Let's kick it.
So how do you think we can use that and get people to come here more?
The relationship with this church and the community is important. Our greatest asset here that we do community-wise is our food pantry. As many of you know and already know that this area, Ward 7, is a food desert. I've observed more people going shopping at 7-Eleven than I see them going to any supermarket because there aren't any. So how do we resolve that? The first step is, before I can tell you about love, before I can tell you about Jesus or anything else, I need to meet your need. I need to feed you. Because there should never be anyone who's going hungry, because we have more than we ever need.
And we pack upwards of sometimes 400, 500 bags. This summer we're at about 300 bags. And yes, so we're able to provide fresh produce for other pantries in the area. And we have right now about 4 or 5 other groups that come up to pick up from us. So.
The church holds the community together. We go out and visit the sick. We have different activities. For example, the group I'm in, Daughters of the King, we do Christmas gifts for children whose parents are incarcerated. We do birthday party for Jesus. We always invite people in, especially mothers with children, because that's how the church grows, with a lot of people being here. My mission in this life is to bring others to Christ. And if I can bring others to the church and to get their acts together, that's a blessing to me.
So what is something you want the youth to know?
That the church hasn't forsaken you. Right? So there are often times where people feel that they have been left behind. That's why I raise the question all the time. What can the church do for you? Because it used to be too often the church feels like, what can y'all do for the church? No. What we can do for you? What is it that we can be a help in? For instance, can we be a help in your walk as far as school? Can we be a help in your understanding on your journeys? Because I believe in having life conversations. Life is real. Who do you talk to when you're feeling down? Right? Depression right now is one of the highest things running in this country. All right? But we don't talk about depression. So when do we get there? But for our young people today, if I had to say one thing that I wanted to make sure they get clearly, is that the church hasn't forsaken you and God hasn't forsaken you. Oftentimes we live in what I call a godless society, in the sense of we don't talk about God. We don't have conversations about what's your understanding of God, what's your understanding of faith. We don't have those conversations anymore, because where do we have them?
So you think no one knows, well, you don't think the youth know about God? That's what you're saying.
My hope is that to get them to a place where we can be a safe space to have real conversations about real life stuff. That's my hope. Hey, this was good.
Nice having you.
It's been a pleasure. I look forward to hopefully having this conversation again some other time, 5 years down the road, and we take it from there.
See ya.
Peace.
Thank you for watching this powerful and informative documentary. Never forget, the Episcopal Church of Atonement is here for you. Stay blessed and stay beautiful. Have a nice day.